Hey, everybody. Welcome to our show. I'm very excited. Today we have our co-hosts Sonia and Sharita with us.
Hey.
But more importantly, today we have Michelle McElroy, a licensed professional counselor in the state of Texas, here with us to give us some insight and, just to keep us informed and so that we can grow together and be healthy in every way. So she's going to talk to us about therapy, counseling, and our mental health. So welcome, Michelle.
Welcome, Michelle.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
So, women of a certain age, what are your feelings about getting therapy for women of a certain age, especially if you had not up until this point had gotten therapy? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, fortunately and fortunately, we are moving into an era where we have more mental health access, whether it's we have higher incomes than we had traditionally, but we also hold jobs that have some really great benefits, like our employee assistance programs that will pay for a sizable amount of our therapy sessions and also our insurance coverage. And because of COVID, the expansion of telehealth has really brought in a lot of people who traditionally would not go to therapy. And therapy is something that is for all ages. If you're just starting therapy at our age, you probably got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. But you do know that, like, culturally speaking, we typically don't seek out therapy.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I feel like that's the root of a lot of our problems with relationships, with jobs, just in general. It's because we've grown up thinking that, it shows weakness if you seek out therapy.
Or even a lack of faith. So I still have people who they have to either conceal that they're going to therapy, or they can't tell certain family members, especially some of the elders. But, there is a mixed review. I think there's a coming of age and acceptance of therapy, because I've also had people tell older relatives that they were going to counseling, and they were very receptive and very supportive and very proud. But there still is that lingering that spiritual shame, like you need to pray about it. We don't tell people our business like that. You telling all these strangers your business, when all actuality, your cousin, your girlfriend, your spouse, your neighbor, they don't have any legal recourse or ethical recourse in regurgitating your information to other people, whereas a professional therapist or a psychiatrist or social worker is not likely to tell any of your business and jeopardize their career. Whereas a spouse or a cousin or a dear friend, we know that is possible and is, things that happen.
Oh, that's a very good point, and that's another, if we could get that message out, we could try to start normalizing it. Because like you said, like, I can talk to my husband about my problems, but he's not equipped to give me, the right tools to handle whatever the situation may be. And he's also, he could turn around and talk to his friend, she crazy. I don't know what, and so that to me is like,
not therapy.
That's not therapy.
Not the right therapy.
That's not the right therapy. Or he'll serve me a margarita, and so we have to, I don't know, how would you normalize therapy? Because like you said, it becomes a shame thing if you are questioning your faith. Like, you don't have enough faith. If you feel like you have to go see somebody else, then where's your faith? Well, how do we overcome that stigma?
Well, the generation that has that stigma, they're not going to therapy and they don't have any benefits anyway. It's
well, that's true.
The true thing is, we're going to therapy and we're not listening to those people as much as people did maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I'm seeing people in therapy who have a mouthful of gold teeth. I'm seeing people who are tatted from the neck down. I see Black men in therapy who have criminal records for murder. Like people are going to therapy and they're not going by force. And the benefits of it, because so many people are talking about it, maybe on social media, which is a good and bad thing, depending on what they're spreading. But also, as people go to therapy, they tell other people about the benefits of therapy, and then they're connecting as well. So how we alleviate this negative talk is to tell somebody, I have a good therapist. I went to therapy about that. That's something that I worked on in therapy. Because the truth of the matter is, our elders, they're not going to therapy and they don't have any benefits that would really help them go to therapy, nor are they likely to change. And we've oftentimes accepted that to a large degree. Like an 86-year-old grandmother, we're not going to drag her through a therapy session.
No,
and she might need to go. She might need to go because, you know, she's got a lot of trauma. She's got 86 years of worth of trauma.
Let her therapist let her go. After 86 years, we've already navigated with her. That person is not likely to change.
Let her take it up with the pastor.
Yeah, let her go and pray about that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like mental health and mental issues are a little bit more normalized after COVID than it was before?
Oh, absolutely. If you call for a therapist now, you're not likely to get in.
That's right.
It could take weeks or months, or you won't even get a phone call. Your phone call may not be answered. You may not get a reply. I oftentimes will say on social media, make sure that you use your EAP, your employee assistance program, before it runs out. If you're looking for a counselor before the holiday seasons come and you think you're going to go through some missing of your mom who passed away and the holidays have come, you need to go ahead and get on that counselor's books now. So, and these are people from a variety of backgrounds. So you would be surprised how many people are in therapy, from children to men. People that have never gone to therapy are in therapy now. So much so that after COVID, once we learned that the commissioner would allow us to expand telehealth, which a lot of medical field is going to be coming out of telehealth. They are expanding telehealth in response to a lot of political issues. And so it's going to keep on expanding, and the access to it is going to keep getting better and better as we move into more healing seasons.
Yeah, that's critical. I mean, I feel like we need that. But what I notice on social media, like there's always these, I don't know, you know how social media can read you, like they know what you're thinking and what you're looking at. And I always get these call for mental health help. And I'm like, why do they keep sending me this stuff? Like, do they think that I'm, you know, in need of mental health help? But it's like there's this thing about, like, you can call and immediately get somebody. You can text your issues. Do you know what that's about? Is that something that you do?
Absolutely not. And so better health in places and spaces like that, they're not highly regarded by professionals in our community. Even though there are professionals in there, there's a lot of predatory interest in some of these platforms that are there to get you started. And it's a great thing to start somewhere. But unfortunately, a lot of seasoned therapists are not up for you texting and calling. And every moment that you have an issue, you're contacting them. And I don't know anybody who is a professional that's been in therapy, that has a lot of training and background. I don't know very many people who have the bandwidth to support something like that. And so when you see like advertisement, and I think all reaches of therapy are great. So if that's what someone needs, that's great. And that's what they're going to get, that's great. The one concern I have is the longevity of the therapists who join those networks. They might be leaving, and that also destabilizes the patient after so long. And also equity and pay is not always great in some of these big pushes. their incentive plans. And you know, the therapist is also in business as well. And so we have to take a look at, you know, what's your cost is going to be kind of the output of the person that you're getting counseling from. And that's not a bad thing, because you've started the process of talking to someone, which is better than nothing at all.
Yeah. I have a question, Michelle. So, I mean, we are trying to really reveal to women our age the benefits of therapy. And some people may see therapy as something that is needed by someone that has suffered like what they would perceive to be an extreme trauma, somebody that really needs to work through some major issues. They're going through things, but they may not make the connection that therapy can work for you also. Therapy can be of benefit to you. Can you speak to some of the subject areas that, or some of the things that women go through that therapy would be beneficial for?
Well, you know, that's a really good question, because I don't see any severe psych, and I'm overrun with patients. I'm working 8 days a week. 8. Okay. And none of my patients are dealing with psychosis, or they're not dual diagnosis. They don't have severe mental health issues. But all of us experience hormonal issues. All of us experience, not all of us, but many of us experience the marriage and partnership and relationship hiccups, and go through depression, where it be from your hormones or a life event. We've gone through a global pandemic. I don't know anybody who didn't know somebody who passed away. And so there was a lot of trauma, that I think worldwide trauma, that we have all tucked away somewhere. But there are people who lost a lot of loved ones, and people our age lost parents and girlfriends and, you know, husbands. And so, and then we're also dealing with, you know, we have little children, older children, and grown children. And so the grown children are also sending people to therapy, because raising another adult into adulthood is enough to drive you to need to talk to someone. And what I found is I need to talk more now at this age than I ever did before. Transitions, financial transitions, just all of those things. Those are not forms of psychosis. They don't have these big diagnoses, but they are bringing people to therapy. And if you have all of these things, you know, coming on you, and you have your mind telling you, I got to fix this, and this kid's car needs 2 new tires, and my air conditioner just went out, and my job is downsizing, and my mom is getting sick, and we got to do Uncle such and such because he doesn't have any kids. That in itself brings it's overwhelming. And then not just that, we spend a lot of our time with our own thoughts, and our own thoughts are enough to drive us to therapy. All of the what ifs, all of the going back. And then you have all of the things that are not settled, like childhood trauma, abuse. People, now that you've gotten to this age, you'd love to confront them. They may have passed on. Some truths that you may want to tell somebody, some things, some fears you still have. And
triggers,
and we're women of a certain age, but let's just face it, a lot of women between 45 and 55 still have 20, 10 plus years left to give something very significant to the world. And they need to be able to process that as they shift into other roles.
Can you talk about, I think it's really important, like you've already said, the benefit of talking to a professional versus the neighbor and your husband, Kaz, because there's safety and confidentiality in that space. But if you were to, like, you know, explain it to us on a very layman level, you know, if you have you know, a knee injury, you go to the doctor, he gives you a treatment plan, and this is something you can expect. Can you tell people, explain to people a little bit how they can expect talking to benefit them? How does talking about your childhood trauma, your bad marriage, your hormones and depression, how does talking about how bad you feel heal you?
You know what? That's a very unique question, because I oftentimes talk about this with patients. I said, you know, when you break a bone, you can go in and you can x-ray that and you can see that it's healing and you got some medical proof. But with therapy, it's just a different kind of magic. Yeah, it's like you can't climb into somebody's mind and see it. But I'll give you an example. I have a patient that started out with not a typical person that would come to therapy at all. Okay, I'm talking has dabbled in the street life, and this is not something that would be the, you know, something that would come from that community is going to therapy. But what a person could expect is very similar to what he received, is to have a space to communicate things that are bothering you, to have a space where you have a connectivity to your therapist and be able to explore your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, but to also understand the origin of them, what in your culture, your society, your income level contributes to how you view things and how you see things in life. And it's like a peeling of an onion. And as you peel this onion, you don't always know yourself that your problem or your issue is related to the fact that your dad left, or you lived in poverty, or you were raised by a grandparent. But as you peel these layers back, you start seeing therapists help you make the connections, right? And through talking, you make these connections, you learn new ways to deal with whatever the problem may be. You may learn to let go and forgive people who have offended you. You've never maybe let that person be free. You've always been in this prison of unforgiveness. Therapists help people, and we all have people we need to forgive. They help you exfoliate the idea of the offense or something someone's done to hurt you. But most of all, like in my case, I'm more cognitive behavioral therapist, thinking about your thinking. Most of the battle is in the mind.
Yes.
It's getting people to think about, what do I think about all the time? Like if I'm losing my job and I'm telling myself I'm stuck, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I just don't know. And I come in and I say, well, what are your degrees in? What skills do you have? Have you looked at a job here? Have you considered moving out of the state? If you did lose your home, who can you go stay with? Like there's always a thought that's outside of this pattern of worry or anxiety, which is a lot of what's going on. Anxiety is fear, and fear could be about anything. It could be attached to anything. So it's mainly talking about uncovering and coming up with the solution for that person to do their work, even if it's journaling, reading a book, to know that you're not the only person there, learning from someone else's experience, even spiritually. There, you know, if you're a person who's spiritually driven, there are numerous people in the Bible who express great faith, like the woman with the issue of blood. She pressed her way through the crowd, and how she was healed was she kept saying, if I could touch his garment, if I could touch his garment, if I could touch his garment, if I could touch it. Because what we say is part of what will heal us. And I'll say this lastly. I always ask people, does anybody else notice your change? See, they can't see your bone. They just know your arm can swing and you pick stuff up. So, but when you change, your light is different. You look different. Your aura is different. You talk differently. Your smile is different. The conversations, the time you can spend with others, the love you can give out, people notice that.
Yes.
Just like when you walk into a place and you know Cheryl, an accountant, don't speak to anybody. She's not friendly. Well, what if you went in there 2-3 weeks later and she's got a bright smile on her face and she's bought everybody's donuts and she's speaking to everybody? You know that there's been a shift in this lady's life. You may not know exactly what it is.
She got a new job. I work with Cheryl.
She got a new man.
She's leaving in August. She's giving her notice.
You know
yes. So you, in a sense, provide the tools that are needed that person doesn't know how to find or provide. They just know they're stuck.
Yeah.
And they need to talk through it. And you help them navigate what they don't know how to do.
Absolutely. And, we have all these people who passed away. And, therapists also help people with, grief and loss, but you'll find that people are also stuck on financial things. Like they don't know that they're supposed to have this aftercare stuff that they're supposed to do. And you got to be careful talking about that with family because, if they find out you got an extra insurance policy, they might have a need. But your therapist does not. Let's say you have a relative who passes, that's the close relative. Yeah. Maybe you are next to kin. I have several patients who I'm talking to them about, after death benefits. And did you look into this? So we talk about career. We talk about, your next steps, childhood, families, husbands. There are different array of things that therapists touch on. It was just kind of like as a person needed. One person coming at 1 hour needs something else than the next 10 people for the next 30 days.
And it sounds like you're giving them the information that they didn't have. Like they didn't have the mom or the dad or the aunt or the uncle to tell them these things. And then they come into your office and you actually give them answers that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
You know what? You say that, but a lot of times we have gotten some of these answers from friends and family, but they can't help you process them in a confidential way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like they'll come and they'll say, well, my mom told me the same thing, or my sister told me that. But telling someone what to do is different from going through a process with them.
Right.
And also having the right questioning and being able to connect cognitive issues together.
And
you keep mentioning the word connect and connection. So full transparency, Steve and I, we do go to therapy. Not that we have issues. I mean, maybe I do, but it's just because, we want to make sure that we're strengthening our marriage and make sure that, we don't step on each other's toes. And because, I can be a bit, hard. But one thing that the therapist told me was, and I connected with what he said because I was like complaining about, oh, Steve does this and he's that, blah, blah, blah. And, Steve, he's just like, And so the guy goes, well, have you ever thought that maybe it's because he wants to be heard? It was like, I don't remember what it was, but, and I was like, he wants to be heard. He was like, yeah, I don't feel like I'm heard because your voice is so big. You're just so, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that, so he helped me make that connection because I'm thinking, he's going to side with me and say, yeah, you're right. But he made that connection in my brain. And so now I'm having to make those adjustments and understand, based on his ability to get. And to me, that's a very valuable, like that was worth how much I paid for that therapy.
But you know what's so funny too, Michelle? A lot of therapists, I've been to a few, a lot of therapists, and I've heard about a few, they're about as different as we are, right? It's not a one-stop, one size fits all. Like you go to the doctor, they all give you the same treatment plan. If you complain about this, it really is, each is different. I've heard of therapists. I knew somebody that went to a therapist because she was going through a physically abusive relationship, and the therapist said to her, basically, why don't you just stop doing what you're doing to get this I'll also say that this it was a Black woman or a woman of color and multicultural. But anyway, this therapist was from a completely different culture where maybe that might have been something that they would do in that culture. So I mean, I really would like you to speak about like maybe matching up with a therapist when you're doing your therapy shopping, not just going down Instagram and looking for a therapist. You know, and I had always said to her, you should find somebody that is really connected to your culture and maybe somebody that's not really so extreme. And that's not to say that all people from that particular culture would be extreme. But you know, and personally, I've been to a therapist that validated me too much. I mean, I think that I although I appreciated the validation, I knew that I'm doing a lot of things that's wrong, and she's not really calling me out on any of it, and she's not really challenging my thoughts. I do appreciate so much that there is an element of life coaching, it seems like, to your therapy. Like, have you looked at this? Have you looked at that? Have you thought about moving? Have you I like that a lot. By the same token, another thing, the great therapist actually validated me in a way that I really, really needed to be validated, because if you know my husband, anybody, my family or whatever, I'm always the bad guy and he's always the good guy. So if there's any issue, it must have been me. Then you could, because he is great and he can do no wrong. So even if I'm complaining about him, they're really not even believing that this person. And when I went to and I was actually shocked, because the therapist was really on his case in a way that he wasn't expecting him to do. But I say all of that to say, can you speak about, you know, whether, and I believe they should, whether people should research? I actually say Black. It depends on the situation. If it's a man, I say Black male, because I don't want my husband to think women are going to be ganging up on him. So that's my thought going. But if it's a Black man, he can meet us in the middle. But you know, if it's, speak about culturally and how to hook up with somebody that's compatible with you in therapy.
You know what's so unique is it depends on what brings you to therapy, but I will start back by telling you therapy is one of the few places where people will say, I want a Black woman, I want a Hispanic male, I want a Black male. Like in the city of Fort Worth, I'm one of the few Black therapists who actually see children. People will say, I want a Black therapist for this, which is to my benefit, you know, business-wise, and whatever area of concentration. People will actually specifically ask their insurance companies. We don't normally do that for an ophthalmologist, or, you know, we don't care who, you know, is doing a lot of our physical care, but we do care about who is seeing us for mental health. So it's not uncommon. But I do have an array of people from various backgrounds. And when we talk about culture, culture is not just race. It could be income. It could be religion. It could just be an understanding of culture. I happen to have a few people who are not from my religion. They're not from this side of the world, but they're having mother-daughter issues. They're having issues with their mother. And that is a universal woman issue. So you have all of these, this is, for example, you have all of these women all over the world. And if we all jumped on a Zoom, we could all relate to some aspect of womanhood, right? Now, there's a different cultural barrier that exists with them and their womanhood, because it may be community shame. It may be interfamily shame. Like, you're not getting along with your daughter. You're doing something wrong. How could you let your daughter marry a purple person? And you brought shame to the family. And so it's a lot more extreme, but we also share the burden of, to a degree, we talked about it before, with these, you know, our ancestors who didn't believe in therapy. They're judging us in a different way, but other cultures of people are being judged in another way. I always say, Sonia, that people say, well, you know, do you do a consultation? Well, a lot of therapists do consultations, I don't need a long time to talk to you. I don't have that type of capacity. I just, basically start out with what can I help you with? A lot of them are referred over to me from other companies. So I already know when I got the paperwork that they were coming for grief and loss. They were having adjustment. They were, experiencing anxiety. So a lot of the hard work is already coming over from pre-screening from some of the companies that I contract with. But what I tell my patients is the great thing about the first session is you haven't told this person very much of your information. And if you don't get a good vibe from them and you don't like them, don't come back. Just don't reschedule. I can promise you they don't care.
Yes. Yes.
They don't.
Even follow up and say, hey, where were you?
Just go on to the next person.
Yeah.
And when I tell you, like, out of the 100% of the people I see, there may be a good 6% that move on to someone else. And it could be any little thing that you did that didn't mesh well with their need.
Yeah.
And when that person leaves, they may not feel like they've gotten anything, or they may not like your modality. And then I have a lot of people who come to me, they've come from therapists who sit and you talk the whole hour.
Yes.
And all they do is say, and write something down.
Been there.
Yes. And so I don't know how they do it, but those people are not broke or out of business.
Right.
And that's their modality. I tend to believe that a lot of people of color, we find that to be kind of creepy sometimes. Like, so I'm just supposed to keep talking and you're not saying anything. But if there is a modality of counseling where that is the case.
Yes.
I don't think a lot of us appreciate it. But matching up with a therapist could also change and shift as you get older, depending on the situation. I have a male therapist. He's an older man. There was a time I wanted to talk to him about some organizational stuff. And I was like, he ain't going to understand this. He ain't going to want to hear this. I need to talk to a woman who is in a corporate setting, or they're in an organization. They understand firsthand organizational structure, whether it be in a sorority, a family organization, or even a corporate structure, because some of the connectivity in seeing someone from your culture, from your race, or from your sex is you don't have to build this whole bridge to get to them. They already know. They're waiting for you kind of on the other side, because they have so much of that already inside. They already know. You're not having to teach them about being a Black woman. You're not teaching them about being a Black mother or wife. You're not teaching them what angry Black women are. You're not teaching them about microaggressions, because I've experienced all of the things of a Black woman. So, and also just humanity. When you work in humanity, you have certain experience. And when you make that connection, it's clear. And if they don't like you, they should just move on.
I think it also depends on like what you're there for. Like, I think you mentioned that. Like, what are you there for? If it's like you feel like, because our therapist is a white man, which Steve made it clear he wants a man. So, and he's pretty good, but we don't have the issues that we want to discuss with him aren't necessarily cultural or racial or any type of information like that. But I can see where you would need to, identify who you're looking for. And I didn't do that when I did my search. But yeah, so it makes sense.
Everything I'm one of those people, and I know I'm not the only one. Race is always an underlying issue. I don't care if you are going to the therapist to talk about, some issue that's troubling you at work that has, it could be anything. But my thing is, there is on some level, I need you to identify, because I feel like race, even if it is unconscious, it is something that's always present. So, and it's perspective, I think. So we mentioned we've been talking a little bit about childhood trauma, and so like one of the things that I think that can be connected to childhood trauma is just the general ways that we are raised as Black people. And you know, it has nothing to do with, you know, the punishment necessarily. It can have something to do with the punishment that you receive, but I think, you know, almost it is like a slave mentality that we were raised with. You know, when slaves used to get beaten, and so, you know, we have this culture. I'm going to like beat you into submission so that you can act right when you go out here. You know that these white people are out here. I'm going to beat you so the white man don't have to. Or I'm gonna beat you so you don't go out there stealing. I'm gonna put the fear in you, and that whole putting the fear in you, that whole thing of raising you to be strong, it doesn't leave a lot of space for like tenderness. It doesn't leave a lot of space for nurturing, because ain't nobody got time for that. You got to go out in this world. You got to be able to take it on the chin. You can't be out here crying in these streets. I'm going to toughen you up so that you can be tough for whatever is coming to you in the world. And that can cause trauma, because that doesn't feel like love. I don't care if you intended it to be love. You were trying to give me a valuable life lesson when you throw, you know, your kids out there at 18 and say, okay, time to go swim or sink or whatever. You may intend it to be a life lesson, but what it is it's rejection, it's abandonment, it's all of these things that can result in trauma. So white people might, and it's not just white people, but white people, Indian, Pakistani, Korean, they will not relate to that because they don't have that kind of upbringing. I don't have to explain to a Black person a lot of things that I feel like I'm going to waste time with on other cultures, is what I'm saying.
It depends on where that Black person was raised also, because that Black person may not be as culturally in depth as you and I and we are. They could have been raised in New Hampshire, in Nebraska, totally different.
Well, let me say this. We think other people don't beat their kids. But they do. Okay.
No, I know they beat their kids.
They beat their kids.
I'm trying to be
Listen, we're not the only ones who discipline the way that we do, but it does come from a place of fear in society. I think a lot of it is considered to be correction in all cultures, but I think that for us, the trauma, which all races of people have trauma, all groups of people have trauma, is that I got to make sure that you go out into the world and you do right, because if you don't do right, we all see on the news what happens when we don't do right, or we have the perception of doing wrong. Even if it's a kid, it's a little person, even if it doesn't matter. We've seen it for hundreds of years. And so when you talk about why do Black people want to whip their kids into shape? Well, Black children have been executed for looking over at somebody or perceived past, and so when you have that, don't do this. I don't know a person that sent their kids to school in the suburbs and said, listen, your friends can do this stuff, but you can't. You can't be straight with them, because if they get in trouble, this gonna be one thing. You can't raise Black children without giving them or transferring some of this fear and trauma, because a lot of it is still true. So then we got to think about who's actually continuing to traumatize us. So our response is a trauma response.
Yes.
That's true. Very true.
So when I tell my son, you know, you can't be out at 1:30 with your friends and they may not look like you, and so on and so forth. And the look, like, you know, like,
It's unfortunate though. It's so unfortunate. It's so unfortunate.
Our trauma responses, I think, can result in childhood trauma because we are like, oh, like you can't do that. What is wrong with you? You can't. And, that's our trauma response. But what we're delivering seems like abuse, which is going to lead to another childhood trauma. I think, go ahead.
Well, I do want to add, Sharita was saying, Black people in our culture is not monolithic. There are very affluent Blacks. There are people who they grow up, and you may be talking about and more specifically, Black people in poverty or lower middle class or even, people who discipline at all class levels, a pop, a rare spanking. But there are lots of Black people from all walks of life who do not discipline that way. I know in the state of Texas, it's not illegal to spank your kids. No. It's illegal in other states, but it's not. Here, we live in a state where physical discipline is a thing. I've also seen the other side of a lack of discipline, a lack of fear, a lack of any regard for there may be a consequence. And you have people, they live in and around us in some of these affluent neighborhoods, and you can tell their kids have no fear. They have no fear of them. They have no fear of God. They have no fear of consequences. They don't fear anybody at school. They have no fears. And so the balance between discipline, because discipline is love, and depending on what that is, as long as it's not abuse, there has to be a healthy balance of that. If the person is hurt or harmed by the correction, then that's not love, right? But that varies in a state where people can spank their kids. We can't tell people that, I wouldn't tell somebody that. I can't tell people that they can't spank their kids. I'm CPS certified. I know the difference, between the two, and have gone out and had to do investigations many 20-something years ago. And when I shadowed someone. So, but there's other trauma that we have that's not just physical trauma. We have economic trouble and trauma. We have medical trauma. Yeah. We have medical neglect and trauma. We have generational apathy, poverty. We have the singleness of Black women. That is all a part of trauma. When you live life and you're constantly struggling, no one has to beat you. Your life will beat you down. System that we live in America, a lot of those things, they were written and they were in place. So there's more trauma to Black people than just physical trauma. We have a lot of sexual trauma that exists in all cultures, but even in our families that we are still addressing. Like, who do we leave our kids with? These sleepovers and Uncle Somebody that everybody knows shouldn't be at the family reunion. That's traumatized multiple people. And some folks have never told, even at this age, they still haven't told on Uncle Somebody, and Uncle Somebody is still at the family reunion. So
I don't understand that at all.
It's in every culture,
and I hear about that. It's prevalent. You hear about that everywhere. You think it's everywhere that there is this member in the family that everybody knows about, but nobody talks about it. Just forget about it. Just sweep it under the rug. I don't understand why people do that. I think it's probably, I understand maybe you don't want to bring shame to your family. You're not just telling on that one person. You're basically outing your entire family.
Family secret. Yep.
Family secret. Yeah. But you know what? But there. I was talking to someone, and they said they got an uneasy feeling. Their child was uneasy around them, and they haven't seen them in years. Like in years, they were excommunicated from the family. That's very rare. But I'm just speaking to the trauma piece. That we have a wide range of trauma, and like I said, like when we were talking about how do you approach someone in therapy. Think about all these variety of things that we gotta find out. How were you raised? What was your income level? Who did you live with? Have you experienced sexual abuse? Have you experienced physical abuse, mental, emotional abuse? What kind of education do you have? Are you happily married? Do you have kids? How you kids? Like, it's a huge thing for us. And so when you talk about women of color, our age coming to therapy, we have all these things coming with us to therapy in a lot of cases.
Yes, that's absolutely true. So I think that there's a lot to this onion that we have to start peeling back. And so what is your recommendation, like the first step for people who say have not gotten therapy and they realize that I do have some trauma that needs to be exposed or talk through? What's that first step for them?
I always tell people, like, go through your insurance, find out on your job if you have an EAP that'll get you started. That's an employee assistance program. That's a great program. Some people, some jobs have 25 visits, some have 3, but it's a good start. Then you would verify with your insurance if you have a copay. Have you met your deductible, and start searching out. I would always want to go with that information. We want to go in with that information, right? Mm-hmm. But a lot of people don't know how to coordinate their own benefits. Normally your doctor's office would do that. But therapy is so much different from getting a well woman, which is a part of every year. You're not getting that every month or, once a week. And so just knowing your benefits and knowing what you have, even your flex accounts pay for this too. Those accounts that store money like that, and then begin the search for therapists. But a recommendation is always one of the best things. Everyone on this call knows a good therapist.
I think the problem is, though, and you said you are booked and busy 8 days a week. Yeah. And you're right, because this stigma has lifted, especially since COVID, and so many people are seeking talk therapy or any kind of therapy. I know so many people that heard the message. If this is an emergency, dial 9. I don't understand those messages. If this is emergency, call 911. Well, I mean, really?
But sometimes 911 is not who you need to call in a mental emergency.
Michelle, I'm just letting you know that it is hard as hell to find a therapist that is available.
Yes.
To you. So forget the referral. If she popping with your friend, you probably gonna have to see her next year, which means that what do you do when you really need to talk and you can't find a therapist?
Well,
what you should do while you're waiting.
You know what? While you're waiting, take care of yourself, meditate. Do yoga, exercise, the things that bring happiness, spending time with others, doing community service. These aren't things that we don't know how to do. We just don't know that's what we should be doing. Yeah. Surrounding ourselves with people that love us, connecting back to family, being with people that love you,
that
are positive, that love you, that make you feel elevated when you leave their space.
Yeah.
And that you are lifting each other up together and not it's not one-sided. Picking a time throughout the week, multiple times, to reward yourself for the small things you've accomplished, and also attending to your own thoughts. Like, what are my thoughts? What are my thoughts? And what do I need to replace those thoughts with? Because even when you get into therapy, you're still going to have to do that work. You're still going to have to do this same stuff, but just start writing it out. Start talking to someone you love, but not in depth, but lean on relationships that are positive, but also start thinking about, when was I last happy and what things bring me happiness? Is it travel? Is it, getting out in the middle of the week and having a dinner with a friend? Is it going to see my mom or my dad? Or is it walking my dog or playing with my dog? Is it being outside at night or sitting and watching the rain? Most of us know things that bring us discomfort, but we have been with ourselves the longest. We know what brings us joy. And so just reconnecting, but nothing is almost better than being in a space, in a place where you feel validated and you feel loved, and just telling people basically, you don't have to go into a lot of details. Just say, hey, I'm at a point where I really need to get together. Like these ladies on the phone that I know, if they told me, hey, can you meet me XYZ place? I just need to get out and I need to talk to somebody. That happens all the time to me. Yeah. I don't take pictures while I'm there. I don't post anything. But I have people show up for me. I've shown up for people. And so just showing up for not just yourself, for other people, that is also lifting. What are you doing with your pain? So while you're in pain, what are you doing with this pain? Because no pain should ever be wasted.
And I agree, because sometimes all those things are great, Michelle, but even with the positivity and the family and the speaking and talking, but sometimes you got to sit down and just be quiet for a minute.
Yeah.
And think about the things that are making you unhappy. And sometimes you can remove some of those things as well while you're waiting, or because sometimes we're so busy. I think I know for myself, back during COVID, I had so much time to sit down and think about things. I cleaned up a lot of things. I changed a lot of things in my life because I was doing things for the wrong reasons for other people that were not making me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Michelle, listen, we know that you have a lot going on with your
Oh my God, Michelle, why do you have to go see patients? We're your patients.
You know what?
She's needed.
Listen, you're better than that. You're friends.
Girl, I'm gonna just tell you right now. I like the sound of my own voice, so I can't listen to too many people for too long. Girl, I can listen to you. Listen, I'm gonna try to give me some health appointments.
You can't be anonymous.
My
God. She'll know your voice.
Wait a minute. Let me tell you. Now, these two on the phone know I'm a comedian.
Oh my God.
And baby, I'll keep you rolling and laughing and joking. So, but you got a good group here and a lot of great women around you. And I see, Cassandra and Sharita, traveling and going to brunch and playing golf and extending the beauty of life to other women, whether it's through golf and through this great platform that talks about aging and being a woman. I think that this is the best time of my life. And the reason why is because the older I get, I didn't give a damn before. Now it's escalated to a word I can't even say out. I don't want to say it. I don't get it.
Right there.
I don't care at all.
Just whisper it in my ear.
That right there.
That part.
Too old for it.
I don't care at all. If you are upset about something I've done, I'm probably gonna make it worse.
Yeah.
I'm there.
We need to get a T-shirt.
Yeah.
WOCA don't care.
I can make it worse.
Exactly.
But being around confident women.
Yeah.
That validate your beauty, who you are, your giftedness, and pour into you. We are so much stronger when we support each other.
Yes.
And we lift each other up. Yeah. What Black women or all women can do in this world, if we would just come together and support one another, even when there's not a therapist available. It was not my therapist who helped me get through the pandemic when I was seeing 50 people a week, because it was all this death. It was my girlfriends who met me in the parking lot at Target and we were in our trunks. It's the friends that go and have a cigar with me or say, hey, I'm stopping by, or hey, can I, it's those things. So I just leave y'all with this. Check on all people, but check on the strong sisters, the people we haven't talked to. If you have them in your spirit and they cross your mind, that's not by accident. Yeah. Pick up the phone and call them. And all this crap about, me and Cassandra, we don't talk all the time, but when we do, that is the worst bull crap in the world. We just connect back. I mean, that's very arrogant to believe you have a whole year to talk to me and I'm going to still be alive.
Right?
Well, then that's very true.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I don't know if you meant that to be your takeaway, because I know you meant check on your friends. But girl, that I hate when people say that. we can go 3 years without talking, and we just
you are not my friend,
and that's supposed to mean something.
No, we are not friends if you haven't talked to me in 3 years.
That's a confirmation that we are still BFFs.
No, we're not friends at all.
Oh my God.
No,
well, that's very
I'm
true.
bad. That's yes.
Yeah.
No, it's very true. And I think we're all stronger.
You're talking to me with that one.
Yeah, no, and we're stronger than we think we are, for sure. Definitely.
Yes.
Sometimes, yeah, the ones we think that are really, really strong are the ones that are really, really struggling, and people
You're
don't.
They don't need anything. They're good. They got it together. They can figure it out.
That's true.
Oh,
well, Michelle, again, this was very enlightening. I love talking to you.
Anyway,
but this has been really great. I really appreciate it. And you are welcome to come back anytime.
Please come back.
And we love, the advice that you've given us, and we're definitely going to follow it.
Yes.
And so please, thank you very much for coming, but please come back because we really need it.
Awesome. Anytime, just invite me.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Yes.